This is the Tyler Morgan Show on Relentless Daring Media Network.
Welcome to the land of bourbon and bad decisions, where the nights are long and the truth cuts deep. Voices rise against the tide with clear intentions in the place where freedom never sleeps. Echoes of the whispers of sorrow stand tall now. About the fights just begin with that we're unsplitting. After all, you got a message for the nation, raising up the flag with no hesitation. Through the storm, the fire burns bright. On the edge of reason, we defend our rights. Whoa.
Welcome back to Land of Bourbon and Bad Decisions. This is the Tyler Morgan Show live on twitch.tv/Tyler Morgan Show, or maybe check this out later on the YouTubes, youtube.com/@the Tyler Morgan Show, or checking this out on podcasts wherever free podcasts are up for auction. So, lot to get into because apparently fascism is here. Oh my God! No, not really, but that is what the left would have you think. But first, I have to find the right buttons to click and need to tell you about coffee. Yes, coffee is the beverage that makes my day go round, and my favorite beverage comes from American Pride Roasters. American Pride Roasters is truly one of the best small coffee businesses out there today. This is literally roasted at home, blended and packaged and sent out to you from the small town of Runnels, Iowa. It is by far some of the best coffee that I have ever had, and I've had a lot of coffee, much of it okay, but I mean, this is truly good coffee. If you're like me, you're a fan of just coffee flavored coffee, they have excellent roasts, excellent blends to give just the perfect flavor, the right acidity level, everything you're looking for in a good cup. Now, if you're into the more flavored coffees, you try the Ron's Sexual Chocolate, hints of chocolate and raspberry. Maybe you like some nuttiness to your coffee. There's, I believe, is the At the Mic blend in honor of Keith Malinak of The Blaze. He's a fan of macadamia nuts, so that is a macadamia nut flavored coffee. Me, I'm not a fan of flavored coffees. I'm, again, the traditional coffee guy. The Teddy Roosevelt, the Calvin Coolidge, the George Washington, just plain coffee flavored coffee where you really get the flavor of the beans that he uses from around the world to make amazing coffee. Check them out today. American Pride Roasters Coffee. Check them out at aprcoffee.com. Historically great coffee. All righty. So, as I pointed out, fascism is here. Or something. This week, the Department of Justice has issued warrants for the arrest of 2 judges concerning the harboring of illegal aliens. Yes, that's right. Because if you or I were to stand in the way, provide a distraction, or house illegal aliens, and the FBI, ICE, whoever were to get word of that, we could expect to be arrested because that's what they do. You're obstructing federal agents in the apprehension of a criminal alien. Now, for some reason, though, the left has it in their minds that If a judge does it, the judge is above the law, beyond reproach. How dare you arrest a judge? That's fascism. What happened to judicial independence? Well, here's the problem with this whole judicial independence thing. I believe we should have an independent judiciary. But if that independent judiciary is engaged in criminal behavior, there should be no issues with them being arrested. If a judge is found to have been accepting bribes in order to get specific rulings from the bench, guess what? That's called public corruption, and no one bats an eye when a judge is arrested for public corruption. But if some fat cow in Wisconsin is preventing immigration agents from arresting a guy who has previously been deported and has an active arrest warrant issued by a magistrate. What is a magistrate? Oh, a magistrate is a judge. Oh my God. But if they show up, this cow of a woman gets all butthurt because an organization she used to work for, Catholic Charities. Now, this is not an attack on charities run by Catholics. This is primarily about a specific one called Catholic Charities, who for the past 10 years or more has been very, very influential when it comes to getting illegal aliens into the country. They provide relocation services for refugees. And by refugees, they don't mean people coming from war-torn countries. They mean people coming from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina. If they're from south of Texas, Catholic Charities is going to work really hard to ensure these poor people get set up in a safe environment within the United States. And Judge Hannah C. Dugan used to work for them. This nice, wonderful Chicago-based charity, which, public corruption in Chicago. Those things would never go hand in hand, Rod Blagojevich. And however many Illinois governors who are from Chicago who have gone to prison, I think that's like a rite of passage to be a governor in Chicago, or in Chicago. To be governor in Illinois, you have to be both from Chicago and engage in public corruption. But this lady is from Wisconsin. And this magistrate, this Stephen C. Dries, United States magistrate judge. So he's not a judge who was appointed by Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Donald Trump. He was a local or a state level judge who was appointed as a magistrate by an Obama era judge who felt that, I think he is on the level enough that a warrant needs signed, if basically anything that does not need to go before the actual bench judges, he can sign off on it. We trust his judgment. Well, a criminal complaint was filed with the judge alleging Judge Dugan, again, who is a state judge, not a federal judge, as some have said on Twitter. Oh, there's a federal judge being arrested, blah, 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 blah. No, she was a state judge, not a federal. So even then, you can't make the argument that this is an attack on the independent judiciary. Federal judges should be protected. No, she wasn't. She was a state level judge. An elected official, believe it or not. She was voted into office by the good people of Wisconsin. Just like the state level judge who was completely independent. He had liberal tendencies, and then he presided over the Kyle Rittenhouse case, presided over his trial, and ran a pretty straightforward trial. He didn't let personal politics get in the way. He would lambaste the prosecution when they would do dumb crap and say dumb crap and do stuff that made no sense. And he would call them out on it. Just like I'm pretty sure if Kyle Rittenhouse's defense was doing the same silly games, he would have done the same to them. He was a very no-nonsense guy. That's what this Judge Dry's guy seems like to me. I don't know. I don't follow Wisconsin politics, so I don't know where he was on things as a state judge before being appointed by the chief judge of the Eastern District of Wisconsin to serve as the magistrate. But this affidavit in support of a criminal complaint. I, Lindsay Schlomer of the DOJ, being first duly sworn, hereby depose and state as follows. Blah, 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 blah. I make this affidavit in support of a criminal complaint against Hannah C. Dugan with 1, obstructing or impeding a proceeding before a department or agency of the United States in violation of Title 18 USC Section 1505, and 2, concealing an individual to prevent his discovery and arrest in violation of Title 18 United States Code Section 1071. This is pretty serious charges. This affidavit is intended to show merely that there is probable cause for the requested criminal complaint and does not set forth my complete knowledge regarding this matter. So this is going based off of interviews with ICE, Homeland Security, DEA, a number of people. Well, first of all, I was going to get a picture of her, but for some reason it wouldn't load onto StreamYard. Probably an internet issue on my end, but connectivity being what it is, I just have to live with it. So I am aware from a review of public records that on March 18th, 2025, Eduardo Flores Ruiz was charged in Milwaukee County Circuit Court case number blah, 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 with 3 counts of battery, domestic abuse, infliction of physical pain or injury. Oh, so first of all, he's an outstanding guy who will beat his wife or girlfriend or sister or brother, whoever the domestic person living in the home with him is. Wonderful. Oh, and like I said, he's already been deported once before. This ain't his first go round, which means he is subject as a repeat offender to a very long stint in prison before getting booted back to Mexico, where he is from. No, I'm not saying something racist. Oh my God, he's got to be racist because he has a Hispanic last name. No, he's actually from Mexico. So, agents from the United States Department of Homeland Security, DHS, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Immigration Customs Enforcement and Removal Operations, ICE, ERO, identified Flores Ruiz as an individual who was not lawfully in the United States. A review of Flores Ruiz's alien registration file, A file, indicated that Flores Ruiz is a native and citizen of Mexico and that Flores Ruiz had been issued an I-860 notice in order of expedited removal by the United States Border Patrol agents on January 16, 2013, and that Flores Ruiz was thereafter removed to Mexico through the Nogales, Arizona port of entry. There is no evidence in the A file or DHS indices indicating that Flores Ruiz sought or obtained permission to return to the United States. So almost 10 years ago, he was booted out once. They find out he's here. Oh, guess what? We're going to capture you and we're going to do it again because you're an idiot. And possibly even give you some federal jail time before we kick your ass back to Mexico. The Milwaukee ICE Bureau office determined through biometric fingerprint comparison that the fingerprints of the individual charged Milwaukee County case number, blah, 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 matched those in the A file for Eduardo Flores Ruiz, removed from the United States as described above. On or about April 17, 2025, an authorized immigration official found probable cause to believe Flores Ruiz was removable from the United States and issued a warrant for his arrest. The arrest provided, or the warrant provided, quote, "You are commanded to arrest and take into custody for removal proceedings under the Immigration Nationality Act, the above named alien, Flores Ruiz, identified on warrant," end quote. Upon his arrest, Flores Ruiz would be given a notice of intent/decision to reinstate prior order. So in other words, once he was arrested, they would say, hey, you're still under the effects of this order, GTFO. He would then have an opportunity to contest the determination by making a written or oral statement to an immigration officer. Oh my God, it's that whole due process everyone's been complaining about with gang members being expeditiously removed from the country under the Alien Enemies Act. What about due process? Well, they were giving him his chance for due process, but a judge stood in the way. The Milwaukee ICE Bureau office was aware that on April 18th, 2025, he was scheduled to attend a hearing in his criminal case. The hearing was set to take place in courtroom 615 in front of Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan. Based on the above information on April 18, 2025, members of the Milwaukee ICE Bureau Task Force traveled to Milwaukee County Courthouse with Flores Ruiz's arrest warrant in hand for the purpose of executing the warrant. I'm aware law enforcement routinely executes warrants and makes arrests in the public areas of the building, such as Milwaukee County Courthouse. The reasons for this include not only the fact that law enforcement knows the location at which the wanted individual should be located, but also the fact the wanted individual would have entered through a security checkpoint and thus unarmed. Oh, so because a wife beating accused criminal would possibly put up a fight, and if he had the opportunity to arm himself, would be able to attack and therefore cause gross bodily harm to the arresting agents, it makes sense. He goes through security, he's unarmed, he's in a public place where lots of people can see it go down. That way, if any hanky business goes on, there will be witnesses. Well, in this case, it did not work against the arrest team. Minimize risk of injury, law enforcement, the public, and the wanted individual. As such, members of the Milwaukee ICE Hero Task Force developed a plan to arrest Flores Ruiz in a public area outside of the courthouse or public area outside courtroom 615 following his scheduled criminal court appearance with Judge Dugan. I am aware that two prior arrests in the public areas of the Milwaukee County Courthouse complex of individuals who were not lawfully present in the United States had received public attention. Both incidents involved individuals who had been charged with criminal offenses, but who were not in custody and appearing for scheduled hearings in their criminal cases. I am also aware that pursuant to its policies, which had been made known to courthouse officials, the Milwaukee ICERO Task Force was focusing its resources on apprehending charged defendants making appearances in criminal cases and not arresting victims, witnesses, or individuals appearing for matters in family or civil court. So, in other words, the courthouse knows, the chief judge of the courthouse, as well as all the associate judges, know, hey, if an illegal alien is there because they were a victim of a crime, we may arrest them at some point, but we're not going to do it in the courthouse. If they are a witness in a criminal case or a civil case, they will not be arrested. If they're there for family court because they're married to an American citizen or they're separating from their illegal alien spouse and there's a kid issue at hand, we don't want to upset that apple cart. So they're only going for criminals who are not detained by law enforcement. People who have been released on bail, people who are released on their own recognizance, which I don't know why you would trust an illegal alien to not be a flight risk, but that's neither here nor there. It's just me speculating. The arrival of the arrest teams at Milwaukee County Courthouse and notification of intended arrest. Bum, bum, bum. 6 members of the ICE Hero Task Force plan to take part in the arrest of the dude on April 18th, 2025. This included ICE Hero Deportation Officer A, Customs and Border Protection Officer A, FBI Special Agents A and B, DEA Special Agents A and B. Agents were generally dressed in plain clothes and intended to effectuate the arrest in as low-key and safe a manner as possible. In other words, he comes out the door and, excuse me, are you Eduardo Ruiz? Yes. You're under arrest. CBP. Boom. Gotcha. At approximately 8 a.m. on April 18, 2025, Deportation Officer A and CBP Officer A arrived at Milwaukee County Courthouse, presented identification to a security guard, and explained they were present to make an arrest. Deportation Officer A and CBP Officer A were asked to show not only their credentials, but also their badges. The security guard stated that she needed to speak with the supervisor. A shift supervisor with the county sheriff's officer was contacted and spoke to Deportation Officer A. They discussed details of the planned arrest, including in which courtroom Flores Ruiz was set to appear. The sergeant asked that any arrest wait until after the completion of the scheduled hearing before Judge Dugan. As this was standard practice, Deportation Officer A and CBP Officer A agreed, and they were allowed to proceed unescorted to the public hallway outside the courtroom. So far, everything is going hunky-dory. Then it gets a few paragraphs into this. Case agents have interviewed the courtroom deputy present in 615 on April 18th, who corroborated the above information. All right. So when they got there, other members of the arrest team were already present in the 6th floor public hallway. When Deportation Officer A and CBP Officer A arrived. Before Deportation Officer and CBP Officer A arrived outside 6:15. FBI agents A and B had advised the courtroom deputy for 6:15 that law enforcement was there to arrest Flores Ruiz. FBI agent A displayed his credentials to the courtroom deputy and informed him that they were there to assist ICE in arresting Flores Ruiz. They agreed the arrest would take place after the appearance. The agents then left the courtroom and took positions at different locations in the public hallway. Again, the deputy in the courtroom has acknowledged that, yes, this happened. Courtroom deputy had opened the doors to the courtroom approximately 8:15, reported the individuals began checking in for the list of matters scheduled for that morning. Courtroom deputy had received a list of the individuals appearing that day, and the courtroom deputy checked in defendants while attorneys checked in with the clerk. Deputy by approximately 8:15, FBI agents advised they were working with ICE, blah, 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 blah. Courtroom deputy told case agents after an ICE arrest in the courthouse earlier that month, the shift sergeant had asked the bailiffs to alert the supervisor at the sheriff's office ICE agents were in the building. Accordingly, the courtroom deputy notified the shift sergeant. Arrest team members reported that while waiting outside the courtroom, a woman approached and took photos of arrest team members. DEA Agent B, who was inconspicuously seated away from the group, was not photographed. The individual taking photographs of the agent had been identified by multiple witnesses as an attorney employed by the State of Wisconsin Public Defender's Office, Attorney A. Team members observed Flores Ruiz arrive on the 6th floor of the courthouse at approximately 8:43 a.m. He was greeted by his attorney, and the two entered the courtroom 6:15 together. Judge Dugan learns of ICE's presence and confronts members of the arrest team. Bum, bum, bum. So witnesses have to describe Judge Dugan's response to learning of ICE's presence. For example, the courtroom deputy indicated that when Flores Ruiz arrived, Judge Dugan already was on the bench and conducting proceedings unrelated to the Flores Ruiz matter. Courtroom deputy observed Attorney A, the individual who had photographed the agents, enter and approach Judge Dugan's clerk. Attorney A stated that there appeared to be an ICE agent in the hallway. Attorney A told the clerk that when the agents were seated, what they were wearing. So I want to know why the public defender has not been charged with conspiracy. Because it's pretty obvious that she was trying to instigate matters to make something happen and to alert the judge so the judge would be able to do something from her position as the judge. Courtroom deputy reported that the clerk then got up and talked with Judge Dugan. Judge Dugan became visibly angry, commented the situation was absurd, left the bench, and entered the chambers. At the time, Flores Ruiz was seated in the gallery. Another individual, Attorney B, was working as an assistant district attorney in Judge Dugan's courtroom. According to Attorney B, there were approximately 8 criminal cases, including the Ruiz case, scheduled for pretrial hearings. Attorney B was aware that the victim from Flores Ruiz's criminal case were in the court. While Attorney B was busy preparing for the morning's docket, Attorney B heard someone announce ICE is here. Shortly thereafter, Attorney B heard Judge Dugan say that she was going to call the chief judge before leaving the courtroom. Members of the arrest team reported the following events after Judge Dugan learned of their presence and left the bench. Judge Dugan and Judge A, who were both wearing judicial robes, approached members of the arrest team in the public hallway. Judge A's courtroom was located adjacent to Dugan's. Witnesses uniformly reported that Judge Dugan was visibly upset and had a confrontational, angry demeanor. Oh my God. You can't just not be upset that these evil fascists are there to grab a man who did nothing wrong except beat his wife and enter the country illegally after once being deported. But other than that, he has a wonderful singing voice and he's a great human being. And he's doing nothing wrong. Judge Dugan addressed Deportation Officer A and asked Deportation Officer A was present for a court appearance. When he responded no, Judge Dugan stated that Deportation Officer A would need to leave the courthouse. No, it is a public government place, and he does not have to leave if he is not violating any rules, you stupid fat cow. Deportation Officer A said that he was there to effectuate an arrest. She asked the Deportation Officer had a judicial warrant, and Deportation Officer A responded, no, I have an administrative warrant. Judge Dugan said that Deportation Officer A needed a judicial warrant. Deportation Officer A told Judge Dugan that Deportation Officer A was in a public space and had a valid immigration warrant. She asked to see the administrative warrant, and he offered to show it to her. Judge Dugan then demanded Deportation Officer A speak with the chief judge. Judge Dugan had a similar conversation with FBI Agent B and CBP Officer A. After finding out that they were not present for a court appearance and that they were there with ICE, Judge Dugan ordered them to report to the chief judge's office. And this is where things begin to turn crazy. Judge A then escorted members of the arrest team away from courtroom 615, down the hall, through a set of double doors towards the reception area for the chief judge's office. DEA Agent B, who was not recognized, and Judge A, was not recognized by Dugan and Judge A as being part of the arrest team, remained seated outside 615. The deputy reported observing a portion of the above described events in the hallway. According to the courtroom deputy, shortly after Judge Dugan was advised of ICE's presence, the courtroom deputy left the courtroom to look for an unrelated defendant, whom the courtroom deputy was seeking to arrest for an open warrant. The courtroom deputy saw Judge Dugan in her robe in the public hallway, telling one of the federal agents that he needed to go talk to the chief judge. So, okay, this is corroborated by witnesses. This isn't just them making it up to go in the warrant or to go in the criminal complaint to get the warrant. Judge Dugan appeared visibly angry and was walking quickly. As the agent entered Chief Judge's vestibule area, the courtroom deputy saw Judge Dugan walk south down the hallway and enter a locked door near courtroom 615. I am familiar with the floor plan of the 6th floor of the courthouse and believe the door Judge Dugan entered led to the non-public hallway from which she could access her courtroom and her chambers. DEA Agent B had remained in the hallway and had not been recognized as a member of the arrest team, reported that Judge Dugan walked around the hallway and appeared to be looking for additional agents before she returned to her courtroom. Once inside the office of the chief judge, Deportation Officer A showed Judge A his credentials and the administrative warrant. Judge A asked the chief judge's clerk to make a copy of the warrant and asked the chief judge if the chief judge was available. The clerk advised that the chief judge was not in the building, but later advised that he was on the phone. At that point, Judge A left, and Deportation Officer A went inside a more private area of the chief judge's office to speak with him on the phone. During their conversation, Chief Judge stated he was working on a policy which would dictate locations within the courthouse where ICE could safely conduct enforcement actions. Okay, that's good and all, but is this just a ruse? Oh yeah, you can conduct these arrests here and you can do them safely. Quick, sneak them out the back. The chief judge emphasized that such actions should not take place in courtrooms or other private locations within the building. Okay, there should not take place in courtrooms. They weren't doing it in a courtroom. They were doing it, and they weren't doing it in a private place, such as judges' chambers, a council meeting room, a conference room that's not, publicly available, a clerk's office. They're doing it in the waiting area outside the courtroom. That's public. Anyone can walk in, and unless it's a closed court hearing, you can walk into any court case as a public spectator. Deportation Officer A asked about whether enforcement actions could take place in the hallway. Chief Judge indicated that hallways are public areas. When Chief Judge expressed interest in talking to ICE ERO management about this policy, Deportation Officer A provided him with contact information for the Assistant Field Office Director. While Deportation Officer A was speaking with the Chief Judge, DEA Agent A, CBB Officer A, and FBI Agents A and B waited in the vestibule area outside Chief Judge's office. DEA Agent A departed the area for a short while. Judge Dugan's courtroom deputy then approached the remaining arrest team members to state that the courtroom deputy then approached maintaining it was not the one who had notified Judge Dugan about the arrest plan. Okay, so he said, "Hey guys, it was not me. I did not tell her. I'm not trying to screw you over." Courtroom deputy also made a comment about how Judge Dugan pushing Flores Ruiz's case through, which the arrest team interpreted that to mean Judge Dugan was attempting to expedite the hearing. You think? So multiple witnesses have described their observations after Judge Dugan returned to her courtroom after directing members of the arrest team to the Chief Judge's office. For example, the courtroom deputy recalled that upon the courtroom deputy's return to the courtroom, defense counsel for Flores Ruiz was talking to the clerk. Flores Ruiz was seated in the jury box rather than in the gallery. So they've already moved him somewhere separate instead of in the gallery with everybody else. The courtroom deputy believed that counsel and the clerk were having an off-the-record conversation to pick the next court date. Defense counsel and Flores Ruiz then walked toward each other toward the public courtroom exit. The courtroom deputy then saw Judge Dugan get up and heard Judge Dugan say something like, "Wait, come with me." Despite having been advised the administrative warrant for the arrest, Judge Dugan then escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. These events were also unusual for two reasons. First, the courtroom deputy had previously heard Judge Dugan direct people not to sit in the jury box because it was exclusively for the jury's use. Second, according to courtroom deputy, only deputies, juries, court staff, and in-custody defendants being escorted by deputies use the back jury door. Defense attorneys and defendants who were not in custody never used the jury door. So, this is 100% a ruse that she put on to get the arrest team out of the hallway right outside the door, bump him up on the docket so that way she could deal with it. And then when he tried to go out the back door, the door he came in, because that's what you do, she says, "Wait, don't go that way because there may be people out there trying to arrest you." And that is where she violated the law. Not some, "Oh my God, Donald Trump's a fascist, he's arresting the judges." Well, you know what? When judges break the law, you're damn right. They should be arrested. I don't care if they're a Democrat judge being arrested through a Republican administration. If it's a Republican judge being arrested by a Democrat administration, if there's clear evidence that they violated the law, they should be arrested. Plain and simple. It's not that hard of a freaking concept. If you break the law, you get arrested, you get your due process, and you go to jail. Now, this isn't the first time a judge has been arrested for this thing by a Trump administration. During his previous administration, there was a judge, I believe it was in the state of New York, that did something similar, that interfered and prevented the arrest of an illegal alien on a legitimate arrest warrant, and he was charged with the same crimes. Now, the DOJ eventually dropped, well, yeah, the DOJ did drop the charges, but it wasn't under the Trump administration. It was under the Biden administration. And then he was referred to the state bar, for a review. Yeah, I'm sure the state bar is either A, going to get right on that because it's still pending, and or more likely they're going to go, he did nothing wrong, but next time make sure you're make sure you're a little more careful about how you go about sneaking illegal aliens out the back door. So Attorney B similarly explained after returning to the courtroom, Judge Dugan forcefully motioned for Flores Ruiz's attorney and a male she did not know. Attorney B had never met Flores Ruiz to approach. Flores Ruiz's attorney appeared to be confused by the judge's gesture, but complied with her directive. Judge Dugan commanded Flores Ruiz's attorney and the male to leave through the back door of the courtroom. Attorney B then saw Judge Dugan escort Flores Ruiz's attorney and the male through a non-public door near the courtroom's jury box. Shortly thereafter, Judge Dugan came back to the courtroom and conducted hearings on that morning's docket. Later that morning, Attorney B realized that Flores Ruiz's case had never been called and asked the court about it. Attorney B learned that Flores Ruiz's case had been adjourned. This happened without Attorney B's knowledge or participation, even though Attorney B was present in court to handle the case on behalf of the state, and even though victims were present in the courtroom. So she's even interfering with, the judicial process in her own state by going adjourned, beat it, scram. And the prosecutor is like, dude, what the hell? And so it seems like he didn't have too much of an issue talking with the investigators from the DOJ, ICE, Homeland Security, and all of them. A victim witness specialist employed by Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office was present. VWS made contact with the victims about Flores Ruiz's criminal case, who are also in court. VWS was able to identify Flores Ruiz based upon the victim's reactions to his presence in court. VWS observed Judge Dugan gesture toward Flores Ruiz and an unknown Hispanic woman. VWS stated she believed the Hispanic woman may have been an interpreter. However, based on VWS's description of the woman and other witness statements, I believe the Hispanic woman to which VWS referred was Flores Ruiz's attorney. VWS stated that Judge Dugan then exited through the jury door with Flores Ruiz and the Hispanic woman. VWS was concerned because the case had not yet been called and the victims were waiting. So then the victims are seeing the guy who beat them be escorted out by the judge without whatever hearing was supposed to happen ever taking place. Another attorney, Attorney C, was in the courtroom to represent a client. Also advised case agents that he observed Judge Dugan forcefully direct two individuals, a man and a woman, to leave through the jury door. Attorney C indicated that this was done with a stern tone. In other words, hey, you, GTFO, go. So after leaving the vestibule and returning to the public hallway, DEA agent reported that Flores Ruiz and his attorney were in the public hallway. DEA agent B also observed Flores Ruiz and his attorney in the hallway near courtroom 615 and noted that Flores Ruiz was looking around the hallway. From different vantage points, both agents observed Flores Ruiz and his counsel walk briskly toward the elevator bank on the south end of the sixth floor. I am familiar with the layout of this, blah, 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 blah. Therefore, it appears that Flores Ruiz and his counsel elected not to use the closest elevator bank to not be there by where the arrest team was. DEA Agent A followed Flores Ruiz and his attorney towards the south elevator bank. At approximately 8:50 a.m., DEA agent alerted other members of the arrest team that DEA agent A was on the elevator with Flores Ruiz. While on the elevator, Flores Ruiz and his attorney spoke with each other in Spanish, which DEA agent A did not understand. They exited the elevator on one of the bottom floors of the courthouse and used 9th Street public entrance exit to leave the building. Having received the above reference information from DEA agent A, other members of the arrest team scrambled to locate Flores Ruiz and arrest him. DEA agent B and FBI agent A and B took another elevator down to one of the bottom floors of the courthouse, blah, 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 blah. After DEA agent A notified the team that he was on the front of the courthouse near the flagpole, the agents ran toward the front of the courthouse. FBI agent B and DEA agent A approached Flores Ruiz and identified themselves as law enforcement. He turned and sprinted down the street. Foot chase ensued. The agents pursued for the entire length of the courthouse and ultimately apprehended him near the intersection of West 8th Street, 10th Street. Flores Ruiz was handcuffed and detained around 9:05 a.m., approximately 22 minutes after the arrest teams first spotted him on the 6th floor of the courthouse. FBI agent A communicated to the surveillance team that Flores Ruiz had been arrested. Deportation officer A, CBP officer A were notified that Flores Ruiz was in custody while they were still inside the courthouse speaking with the chief judge on the phone. Yeah. She engaged in a ruse, a straight up ruse to get who she thought was going to be making the arrest out of the way, so that way she could speed the docket up, adjourn his case without even having actually having the hearing that he was there for, wasting the time of the victims who came for whatever the hearing was, and escorted him out the back door so that he could, hopefully sneak onto the elevators without being noticed. But the left completely ignores the criminal complaint. Well, they could be lying on the criminal complaint. Oh, you mean like FBI agents who lied on documents to keep the FISA warrants against Carter Page? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, FBI, they would never do that. Shut up. You're accusing them of lying, or you're not doing it publicly. It's probably going through your brains. But this whole thing, calling this fascism because this fat cow got arrested for breaking the law. There's a judge and his wife in New Mexico also in the last week that were arrested, and there's not been near as much chatter about that one because it's a little bit harder to defend when you have pictures of you traveling to a gun range with illegal aliens. Now, mind you, if you're an illegal alien, if you are here illegally, you do not have permission to be in this country. You cannot own or possess a firearm, and they're taking them to a freaking gun range. And they were staying with them. There's pictures of the people staying with this judge and his wife. And then I said, so the outrage hasn't been near as strong on that case, but there's been some, oh my God, judge's wife were arrested, blah, blah, blah. Then as the facts come out, it gets pretty quiet. But this is not fascism. This is called law enforcement. Not selective enforcement, not we're going to make an example. The law states that if you have a warrant, whether it is a judicial warrant, whether it is an administrative warrant, you can be arrested. And the people who receive that warrant, instead, it is their job. It says you are commanded. I, a magistrate judge, I, a district judge, I, a justice of the peace, for crying out loud, have the judicial authority to sign and issue this warrant, and you will fulfill it. But they don't care, because it goes against everything they advocate for. They love illegal aliens so much that if a judge is arrested breaking the law to keep an illegal alien from being deported, and keep in mind, this isn't some dreamer who's been here since he was a baby, and now he's just being picked up at the 7-Eleven trying to get a Slurpee. This isn't some lovely, poor defenseless Maryland man who what was he accused of? Domestic violence. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That's a keeper, right? That's the kind of people we want in our country. Guys who punch their wives right in the face. Guys who are so great they have to have protection orders from their wives. That's who we want here. Because we don't have a big enough problem with dudes beating their wives in this country. We need to import more wife beaters. Not only that, he was arrested he was temporarily detained while speeding in Tennessee with a bunch of Hispanic people with no IDs. And he was suspected of human trafficking, and he was ordered released by the FBI. Ridiculousness, pure and simple. They get mad that he was deported, but they ignore that there are victims in this country who would not be victims if he was not freaking here. Oh, well, he was here since he was 14 years old. Excuse me. I'm sorry. That it's dumb. It's as dumb as the argument as it's as dumb of an argument that had I can't even make it hurts my head trying to find comparable stupid arguments to all of this. It's come on, people. We complain when law enforcement does not enforce the law. But when they do enforce the law, you complain because they're not enforcing the law against the right people. They're picking the wrong people to enforce it against. The criminals. If the DOJ, if the statute of limitations has not expired, I think everybody who was on camera launching Molotov cocktails at that Portland federal building that the stupid Antifa people tried cementing the back door so they couldn't open it and trying to burn down the federal building with federal law enforcement officers inside of it, that is attempted murder. That's not just arson. That's not just mayhem. That's attempted murder, federal attempted murder, because they're federal agents. But not one person had been arrested for that. Not one person has gone to trial for that. But you know what the FBI did do? They sought after every person who may have set foot past the fence line on January 6th. They took a journalist who he did nothing inside the Capitol other than just walk around with his camera and his notebook and a pen, filming and taking notes. And then when the FBI asked, "Hey, you were there as a journalist. Can we get copies of your footage and get copies of your notes of what you saw?" He complied. And 2.5 years later, he is charged with rioting, obstruction of an official proceeding, vandalism. He's like, yeah, the only thing I did there is I trespassed. And then before his case was eventually, he was pardoned and his case had to be dismissed. Um, he ended up pleading guilty to I forget which charge it was. And even the judge, who is a retarded leftist nut, after he pled guilty, I don't worry about scheduling your sentencing yet because you'll probably be pardoned before I can do it. The FBI would send, SWAT teams at 6 o'clock in the morning to arrest people because they had the audacity to pray outside of an abortion clinic, to sing hymns outside of an abortion clinic, and charge them with the FACE Act, like they had barred the door to the abortion clinic shut and were physically preventing people from going and killing their babies. And the left applauds that action. Yeah, how dare you use your God to prevent women from exercising their reproductive rights. I'm sorry, you do not have a right to kill another human being unless it is in self-defense, and you'd be really hard-pressed to make a clear-cut case for self-defense against an unborn child, regardless of whatever stage of gestation that unborn child is in. You people on the left are retarded. You demand law and order, and then when law and order is actually being enforced and carried out by the people you want to enforce the law and order, you lose your ever effing minds. Oh, it is so hard to not just be swearing up and down while doing this episode. So, yeah. Fascism is here or something. I don't know what to say to these people. I don't. Other than wake the hell up, grow the F up, and pull your heads out of your collective fourth point of contact, get some oxygen, and just use whatever brain you've got in your skull that the good Lord gave you. And maybe realize that the protection of the American people is more important than your stupid, bleeding heart, commie principles, such as open borders and allowing everyone to come here and just suck off the tit of America because, well, we can afford it. All right, that's going to wrap up the show. Thank you for staying with me. If you followed along for the whole me going through the complaint and expressing my opinions on this stupid fat cow. If you enjoy that, please be sure all the place you can find me, Twitch. Please subscribe to my Twitch. Show up for the live shows. It's great. I love yous. Follow me on YouTube. Please be sure to like the video, follow, subscribe, all that happy crap. Share the video with people. Podcast, again, subscribe, rate, review, and share. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, find the right things to click here. And as always, I can't do anything right. Stay relentless. The Tyler Morgan Show is a relentless daring media production. The Tyler Morgan Show is supported by its listeners.
To support the show, go to ko-fi.com/Tyler Morgan Show to donate there, or relentlessdaring.com and hit the donate button at the top of the page to set up your donation. All music used in the Tyler Morgan Show is used with permission from purpleplanet.com, link in the show notes. 2 Timothy 1:7.